to the Hello Web App workshop. Hello Web App is my book series that I wrote a little over a year ago. So thank you so much for being here. The main website is hellowebapp.com, and that has everything I've written for the book, has the install instructions there, has a blog where I add more tutorials and whatnot, so FYI, check that out. But there's also a GitHub repository there, which is github.com/hellowebapp, which also has more instructions and information and whatnot. And about me. So about 7 or so years ago, I taught myself how to program. And when I taught myself, I figured it out. But the thing that really annoyed me as a designer is that, a little distracting. The thing that really annoyed me as a designer is that, yeah. Okay. I'm very just easily distracted right now. I'm like, woo, shinies. Okay, so I wrote these books mainly because I didn't like the way the other tutorials were being taught, because it all assumed you had a background in programming, and I didn't have a background in programming. I'm an art major. Yeah. Hey, Andre? Andre, can we just, yeah. All right, so, okay. I am very scatterbrained right now. I would say my mentors. Andre is my husband. He's awesome. He's the one who taught me Python, essentially, back in the day. Andrew over here does a lot of work up in Canada, Vancouver, Ladies Learning Code. So I'm going to be doing some teaching back and forth up here. You don't have to follow along. You can just open up the book file I gave, /secret book. And there's also Kindle files on the USB keys. And you can just go at your own pace if you want. Or, so you can start working now and just ask questions and mentors will run over to you. Or, once we get everything installed, I'll do a more formal hey, we're gonna type this in and see what happens. I'll have instructions. So feel free to do both. But these are my books, which are pretty awesome. If you have questions, one of the things with these tutorials is that it's not just a 3-hour tutorial, it's something that we're gonna, hopefully continue talking about afterwards. So you can follow me on Twitter and ask me questions there. You can email me, which is my email address you can find on my website or on Hello Web App. But the big thing is the discussion forum, and that's where I try to funnel all the questions about Hello Web App or learning how to program or pretty much anything you want to do to talk about. I built that forum to answer questions after these tutorials. So that's pretty much only thing I want to go over. I'm just going to run around and make sure everyone's gotten to the point, hopefully, of seeing the Django start page. There's a Django page. It's ta-da, you install Django. And that's where we'll start the formal walking through tutorial. So again, if you're already there, feel free to just jump on ahead and start working. We just need to get a few more people brought up to this point, because that's literally the hardest part about programming. Well, one of two things is usually installation. It's like installation and deploying your web app. It's the beginning and the end of your journey. So yeah, thanks for coming here. Sorry it's a little chaotic, but we will get started very soon. And this is the page, eventually, hopefully you'll get to. All right, questions? There we go. What was that? Yes. Yeah. Well, sorry. Well, chapter 1, chapter 3, I think. Okay. You can feel free to read that later. It's just this is what you should know. Hello, nice to meet you. And then if you scroll just a little bit further, okay, you'll see. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's chapter 3 of the book. If you want to just continue, just start working. You can start from there. All right. So, okay, well, it looks like you have the virtual environment.
I've got Django installed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm right here.
I'm just going to laugh because I think you had a typo. It's called My Hell Web App.
Yes, I thought I
Was that on purpose? Yeah.
Well,
all right.
I
see what you
well,
did.
no.
Yeah. Okay, so you're at this point, and did you do get init?
Yes.
All right. Oh, I see. And then you scroll down. Feel free to ignore this optional part for now.
Okay.
So then you have to copy paste that in. You need the dot. So the dot basically says install it here. It's a very odd thing.
Okay. Now, am I gonna have a problem if I?
Nope. That's
Okay,
that's
that's a
it's a
separate thing.
name. Yeah. That's fine. So if you do here, are you using command prompt? Okay. dir. I'm just going to show you this. So you can see you have all of a sudden these new files, manage.py and hello web app.
got it,
So
right,
it worked. It didn't give you a success message, but it worked. So then you can scroll down. So you can, this just explains what those files are. Continue scrolling until you get to the next line. Now you have to create that, so you can type that in or copy paste that in. Sorry, I know this is hard to film. All right. So that was successful. And it made more files, and we'll go over that in a second. Yep, so you can see collection there.
Okay.
So I'll go over a little bit of explanation about that in a moment. And then, do you have a code editor that you've used before? Like something to open up files?
Let's see. I don't remember.
Okay, so I can give you a USB key and give you Sublime Text, which is a very lightweight one. So I'll give that to you. Okay, yeah, if you want to pass it over. It should work for both Macs and PCs. So there will be a folder on there that has Sublime Text, and you'll see Sublime Text for Windows. And you can just pull that, install it in, and then follow the rest of the instructions. What? I have never, what is it?
I mean, it's fine, I guess, but like, it's very small.
Fun with Windows 10?
No, this is VirtualBox. VirtualBox is tiny.
It's silly.
I
You
know.
should be able to maximize it.
Yeah.
FYI,
Yeah.
your git ignore instructions are missing a step.
Oh.
You have to git add it before.
Oh, right. You're right. Good ad. I just did that this morning. Sorry.
I can, so just now I overheard how do you install from tarball.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So unzip the tarball, cd into there, Python setup.py.
Oh, okay.
It'll install.
But when we're in that virtual environment, you want to make sure you're in that virtual environment. So if you leave the virtual environment, you're going to install it in the wrong place. But if you do -F, it should install from the tarball, I think.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just learned that. But now I have a second thing to know. Yeah. I'm so used to having the internet.
The virtual env is separate from pip install or Python setup.py install. As long as
Yeah.
you activated that virtual env first, and then you do the Python.
Oh, you're right. You're totally right. Cool. Good point. Yeah, it's usually there's always a little bit of Wi-Fi. In this case, it doesn't seem like there's any Wi-Fi. But that's why I have the USB keys, because there has been times where we were like, you're just going to have to watch. All right, let me figure out why this is tiny. That's so funny. We have to figure this out. Oh, thank you. Okay. Hi, did you get the start page?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Did you get does everyone here have the start page? And just chilling. All right, thank you so much for your patience. There will be snacks later, I promise. Celebratory snacks. Anyone on this side of the table need some? Good, good, great. You can if you want, or you can just do whatever you want, and then I'll do more of a walkthrough, or just have like 2 more people when you sneak up to speed. For me, like whenever I go to these classes, I'm just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do my own thing. So I just want to tell people like, you're totally okay. Just continue. Like, you don't have to listen to me. I wrote the book already, so. Yes. Is it being funny?
So source
Oh, right. Mind if I just type some things? I just want to see what this looks like. You're using command prompt. Okay. My husband, remember, add. We just fixed this for someone else, so I just need to grab my husband when he's ready. Hey, Andre. Remember when the other person with virtual env that didn't have the right files? How did you fix that?
script activate.bat.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Script slash activate. That didn't work. Okay. I'm just gonna have him do it for you. It's in the scripts folder?
vn/script/activate.bat.
Weird. Okay, sorry. Wait, try once more. Sorry, I'm just gonna do this. Why did that activate?
A bunch of people on it.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, it should be fine to tutorials. There it is, activate that bat. I don't know if I have to be in the right folder. Scripts. Sorry for doing this. Getting all up in your face. Activate, not bay. How do you like the surface?
It's awesome. It's so powerful and it's
Mm-hmm.
not expensive.
I've heard some good
Mac.
things.
Yeah.
Move.
I think it's just take it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In your survey, you should ask them how many people have Windows.
right. I didn't have a survey.
Yeah. I mean, once we had.
It's Venv, you said?
No, I mean vn slash, like the vn is a directory name,
Oh,
slash script, whatever, slash activate.
no, I was in it. I guess I was in the wrong folder.
Oh, you're already in it. In
Yeah.
that case.
You have to go up a directory then.
Yeah. Sorry for taking over your keyboard.
I just apologized for the same thing, which was funny.
Yeah, pretty rude, but.
Oh, / Windows. That's why it wasn't working.
There you go. Ta-da. So
Ta-da.
let's see how this thing is.
All
So
right.
it's vn plus this.
And I'm sorry. I'll fix the instructions.
I don't know why I changed. Maybe it's new.
But then just continue on. as
Yeah, everything
normal.
else should be similar. Let me know. Please, actually see one thing.
Yeah, so he's just a couple steps behind. Yeah. So now you have the bubble. All right, let me get my code working. It's so awful. I want to write a program ideally that you can just press a button and make it work, but there's so many different environments now and so many different computers that's why it doesn't exist, which is very frustrating. Okay. Exactly. I know, it's really, yeah. And yeah. Okay, who has not gone to the congratulations it worked page that's over here? Have we all got y'all? We're close. Okay, I'm gonna wait one more minute, and then I'm gonna come over here and help out. Yeah.
Sorry, I have to switch back between Mac and.
It's because I'm looking at you. Whenever I'm looking at someone type, my fingers
typing's
turn into
horrible.
spaghetti. There's blah, 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 blah. I have noodle hands. Cool.
Okay, so now, visually, you should see this guy.
Yeah. think you can. So then you have to add this into the settings file. No, just the top line actually. All right. All right. So I'm gonna. Yeah, Mac and Linux is like. Yeah. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a. It's in the book, but the reason why our app is called Collection is because this is a format that you can easily form. You can change that to whatever you want to build. For example, Twitter is a collection of tweets. Pinterest is a collection of photos or images, I guess, collected on the internet. The original Facebook was a collection of information about people before it had the whole newsfeed thing. So the examples in the book are really generic. It's like you're building a collection which has things in it. And you can, if you want to like go to advanced mode, you can say, all right, I'm going to make a collection of people. My first project I ever built was a directory wedding invitation designers. So I had a collection of people, and in any of these cases, you basically need just like a name and a description, and that's what we're going to build. So instead of saying thing, you could say person, or you could say skateboard if you're going to do a collection of skateboard designs or something like that. So FYI, that's the reason why it's called collection. It's not like we're creating a to-do list that you can only, you're only creating one project. You can update it to something that's more interesting to you. And I found that is pretty good for someone who is just jumping into programming to like build something that actually matters, like is customized. Because for me, at least, it allowed that information to stick better in my head. All right. So we good? There? Still working on it? Sweet. Okay. All right. So I'm going to open up the book on my end so you can see me going through this. Ignore that. My internet works. I should just open up for my files. 1 second. All right, so we're going to start at chapter 3. Or chapter 4? Yeah. So at the end of chapter 3, it's going to say, hey, congratulations, you created the start page. So if you got to this point, congratulations, you got through, like, seriously, the hardest part about this entire book is the first chapter. Sorry. The first thing we're going to do, basically we have Django set up over here. And I'm going to start from page, not that, sorry. Reader, page 12 on the book, which is chapter 4. So if you look at this web page, you might be saying, like, it's like, congratulations, you built a Django web app. And then you're like, what do I do now? Because this looks like, a website you could launch, but there's no way for, if you have any experience with doing HTML or CSS or anything like that, you might be going, how do I make this actually look like a web page? So we're going to work on the actual website stuff first. We'll get into like the Django specific stuff second. But first, we're just going to try to work on adding HTML files and a CSS file. So the first thing you want to do is jump into your collection folder. Your collection folder is where your app is, and there's a lot of Django magic kind of hidden here. So if you go into your collection folder, which I'll do it with you. So if you cd into collection, come back. And in collection, you have a folder named migrations, a directory named migrations, and it has admin.py and models.py. We'll get to those files in a second, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a directory called templates. And you'll see it pop up here when you look at your list of files. And then we'll cd, which is change directory, if you're new to Unix commands, change directory into templates. You notice that's empty. So for anyone who's on a Mac, if you're on Windows, actually, if you're on Windows and you're using the regular command line utility, you're not going to have the ability to do this command called touch. It's only for like Macs, Linux, and in the installation instructions for Windows, it does walk you through using installing a thing called git bash. Will give you that ability. But for anyone who does not have this and using typical Windows, you can go into your code editor, like Sublime Text or whatnot, and you can create an empty file from there. But you just have to make sure to create it inside your templates directory. And we'll take a break later, and we can install this for you if you want to install it. So I'm going to use the command on my end, and I'll say, what is that, index? Yeah, touch index.html. And you can see this new file is here. And then I'm going to go into my editor. I'm going to use a secret command that I have just to open it up. I'm using MacVim, so it's going to look really spare and sparse. There's not going to be anything here. Your code editor is probably going to have more features, like Sublime Text has ways to open and whatnot. Just FYI, that's why mine looks different than yours. But it's going to be completely blank like this. So does everyone have an index.html file created and it opened in their code editor? Well, I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this in. And does anyone need help? Want someone run over and help out? Feel free to raise your hand at any point, and people will run over. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy paste this in from the book. And if you know HTML, this is just real basic stuff that you need for HTML files. It basically says, hey, this is a website. My title of my website is Hello Web App Project, and it has a headline in the middle. It's going to say, Hello World, and it says, I am a basic website. And it's often a little bit faster just to copy paste it from the book, if you can. So I'm going to keep this up on the side over here. I wonder if I can do float on top. Don't think I can. All right, one second. I'm going to open this up. It's in the book, so you can copy paste it from there. The thing is, we added that HTML file, and you'd think if you refreshed your page over here that it would update. You would see that new file you put in, but it's not there. So we need to tell Django how this file exists, because Django doesn't find this file on Django doesn't find it automatically. The way that Django works is that you're going to create basically this map file that lists out every page that exists on your app. So if you have like a basic, like a portfolio website, you might have a introduction page, like a home page, an about page, and a contact page. You can create these HTML files for Django and put them in here, but Django doesn't know they exist until you go to this file that's called urls.py. So urls.py, and that basically lists out every file we have. If you head back out to your top level directory, which is called My Hello Web App, the one with manage.py, and then you go into the Hello Web App directory. This is the directory that has urls.py, settings.py, wsgi.py. So we're not going to worry about wsgi, but that's where urls.py exists, and we're going to open it. So let me grab it. And this is the urls.py file. So this is where the listing of like every page in your website, this is where that's going to happen. And right now, the only page that exists is /admin, which we'll get to in a second. So we're going to go back over to the book. And you see this bolded line here. That's the line that we're going to copy paste into urls.py. So I'm going to copy it in, and I'll tell you what it means in a second. So this looks super complicated because it's using regex. And honestly, I have been working on programming for like 7 years now, and hell if I know how to use regex. The way I work with Django, basically my thing is I build websites. And I build websites using Django, and I build web apps. And I have a full-on web app with like, login forms and registration forms and all that kind of stuff. I've never actually had to learn regex. The only place it exists in my life is in this URLs file. And honestly, I just copy paste these lines. The way this works is it's basically saying this first part is like, what's the pattern? So if you are mysite.com/nothing, that's what this is going to match. It's going to say, oh, hey, this is the top level page of your website. All right, cool. We're going to grab the code that builds this page from here, which is our views file. We'll take a look at it in a second. And we're going to name this home. And then there's other pages like this one. It says, hey, anything that has mysite.com/admin, use this bit to build that site, which will, there's simpler examples in a second. But this essentially says, use this code, and we're naming it this. And because we're telling it to say, use this code, we're going to go over that views page and build the code that runs this site. Is everyone at this level? OK. So you have the book open on your computer, right, for copy pasting? Want to help? Oh, my fault. Aha. This is new. So I wrote this book in Django 1.7. I did tutorials in 1.7, and then Django 1.8 changed it on me, and I keep forgetting about this line. All right. Oh, gosh. OK. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're a little farther ahead, right? That's something I need to fix. Let me see that. It's not you. It's me. Yeah. Do me a favor when you go back here. Add a little comma include. This is Django 1.9. I keep forgetting to fix that. It's not you. This is me. This is a existing bug that I want to mention.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Yep. Honestly, right before this web app, I'm like, where was the bug? I couldn't remember where the bug was. And I was like, I'll find it during the workshop. I've been like traveling for the last 2.5 weeks, so my brain is like mush brain right now. OK. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I was going to get to that in just a second. OK, so the reason why it says collection.views is collection, like you said, is collection is the app that we just built. And we're saying, hey, go to this app that we just built and find that file named views. And that's where we're going to find that code. And that's why we had that import statement that was missing. Andre? When? Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yes, exactly.
OK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It creates a bunch of stuff for you, so you have to do it manually. And that's like
The Django magic.
state, and then you can modify it.
OK. Not yet. Yeah.
It's complaining a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. All right. So, we just added that. Whoops. So we just added that that line that says, hey, we're going to take this code. And we're going to grab the code over here. And this is where my little bug is. Ta-da. OK. Oh, wait, no, this is, yeah, not that one. Oh, that's what they did different. OK, sorry, talking to myself. All right, so FYI, in case you're wondering what I was just mumbling about, this is Django 1.8, and I decided to upgrade it to 1.9. And then I forgot to update the book because Django 1.8 used this syntax that says, hey, include this. And it had this thing saying, like, hey, up here, you would have from Django import include. And Django changed that on me. So if you notice, this is the old syntax where it said include, comma, admin.site.urls. And now the new syntax has, it's just admin.site.urls, which is a little funny. So FYI, what's in this file is correct, where it says admin/admin.site.urls. All right, moving on. Sorry, that was confusing. So we're going to open up our views file. And views is essentially is where we're going to hold the code that runs the website. And the views file is in that collection directory, that app that we built earlier, in the collection app, the collection directory. It's views.py. So I'm going to open that on mine. So it's /collection views.py. And it's blank right now. It says create your views here. Yeah. I'm sorry? Over here? Oh, you want to go here? Sorry, which page do you want to see? Do you want to see the book? Yeah.
I think she wanted to see what you opened. But don't worry about the
Oh, the terminal. Yeah. I opened up using my editor. Yeah.
Remember
Hi.
the first video, we need to tell it where you need to go get that file, that index HTML file.
So right now it'll be, this part's a little confusing because I'm kind of relying on Django just building up stuff for us, and I'm not doing a lot of instruction, like a lot of explanation, because we're gonna get the website up, and then you'll start seeing how things tie together.
So all we have to do is copy this guy.
So we haven't gotten here just yet, but you can feel free to jump into that right now.
So that's where she's going.
Yeah.
Where she was before is this guy. Yeah. But yet, see his in the books right here. So that's
So views.py is under collection, the collection directory.
right here. Right here. So there you go.
Yeah. So now you have all three. You can see on top of mine, index, URLs, and views, and now you're the same thing. All right, does everyone have views.py open? Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, like, yeah. 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 Well, you have the full book, and the book goes, I mean, it has all my written instructions anyways. So at your own pace later on, you can go through the book and then email me any questions you have. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. All right, so we're on views.py, and this is where we're going to have the code that runs this website. So this looks complicated. I'm going to, again, just copy paste this in here. Keep forgetting which file I'm on. Now, if you're new to Python, which is totally fine because I basically taught myself Python as I was building, as I was building my first web app with Django, I was literally teaching myself Python. I had no idea what I was doing. One of the things to remember is that your indentation really, really matters because this is how Python determines what goes with what. So this is kind of like the headline, and then this is the content underneath the headline, and it's indented in because it's saying the content here is indented in, and so Python knows it goes along with that headline. If you think about it in terms of like a Word doc. So when you copy pasted it in, it took away that indentation, and you have to make sure it matches what the book has. And then this view, again, it looks complicated because you're like, what is request? What is everything else? But you can just look at this and see, essentially you're saying, hey, this index view, you see views.index. We're in our views file, and this is called index here. And we said, hey, when index is called, just render this file here. And that's the file we created earlier. And there's a simpler way of doing this. But if you type this in and save your file, now Django knows what to do. Django knows that if you go to /, it says, hey, grab the code here. And then the code says, when this code is grabbed, display this site. So we're going to go back to our web page. Oops, I have a hash in there. If you go back to your web page, suddenly it works. Django says, okay, this file exists. I know how to get to it. Does that make sense? I mean, feel free to ask me questions. Yes? I know. I was thinking to myself, I'm just going to make it really confusing. If you copy paste it in one thing.
But it's not letting me copy and paste because it's a PDF file, so it's a picture.
Oh, that's weird.
Should.
It should. I'm using the PDF
There's a
file.
different- I think you have
I think the
a
find
tool
is,
selected. There you go.
the find is, close the find.
Um,
Now try.
no, I think it's like
Oh, weird.
different mode.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on Mac it lets you copy it.
No, it should in
There you
Windows too.
Select tools what you want. There you go.
There you go. Okay.
But the string is wrong anyway, right?
No, this is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I made that a little confusing.
It's not
My
wrong,
fault.
everything's fine.
Everything's okay. Then I'm good.
All right.
Okay.
Yay, we can copy paste. Okay.
Mine's getting template as much.
Okay. Does your template under collection/templates? Yeah.
All right, moving it to.
That looks right to me.
All right. There we go.
Ta-da! Okay. I'm gonna fix this.
There you go.
Got
We were
it?
trying to figure out why I was bold, and it's because I typed HL instead of H1.
It's really hard.
So
Yeah.
what I was saying was that what I know about HTML, I know from web scraping.
Yeah.
So,
That's totally fine. Yeah.
so I'm like, I'm sure this makes sense.
Yeah. I think that one of the things I try to, we're going to do very, very little HTML, but it's like pretty see, it's like H1 is like H means headline, and then P means paragraph, and that's it. Yeah.
So it was funny though, because I heard one of my colleagues when I was doing this, he was like, well, you know, you print span. I was like, what's a span? He's like, it's like a div. I was like,
What's a div? Yeah. It's a little like, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Once you, okay. Anyone else need help on this section? All right, so we got a website up. Ta-da! Now it actually looks like something we can build and we can edit. You know, at this point, you could just make a one-page website, and you can go in here and be like, if you know HTML, you can be like, oh, I'm gonna add like a little, like, list. And you're like, don't follow me on this, but you can see on here. You can see on here that you can edit this. You can edit that file and refresh the page, and it's a website you can edit. Unfortunately, it's a lot harder to do because it's funny building a static website. See, if you just wanted to build this with HTML, all you have to do is like build the HTML file, you point your browser to it, and it's like, ta-da, it works. But you do this in Django, you have to put it into your urls.py file, then put it in your views.py file, and then you have to like point the server to it, and then it magically works. So that's the downside if you're going to build a static website. That's why you want to use just regular HTML. However, we will start building in some of the Django stuff, like running databases and stuff like that. You'll see like some of the more dynamic stuff that makes it awesome. Just this basic website stuff takes a few more steps than normal. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So it allows you to control what's what he was saying is that by having that like basically that mapping file and telling Django like these are the pages of my website and this is what we're going to do with it, instead of Django just like looking at a file and figuring it out for you, it allows you to have more control over what's shown and what's not, and you can take things out and put things back in.
So does that views.py file contain all of the pages, like a list of all the pages that you have?
So eventually, so there's, when you first start out, when I first started out, I had basically a page and I had code for that page. And that was really easy for me to figure out what I was doing, because every page I could see like what's going on that page. Advanced programmers will have like one piece of code that runs many different pages. So you can like have smaller code bits. Mm-hmm.
You'll have one of those little
Yeah.
function directory type.
Yeah. So what I'm doing here, I call it they call it function-based programming, right? Did I get it right? There's class-based. I know. There's class-based where they'll have like basically like generic code blocks that just magically work. So for advanced programmers, it's a lot less code and it looks a lot more efficient. They're like, yeah, less code, like only 5 lines, running my whole website. I'm a big fan of lots of code because then I know what's going on and there's no question. I am a perpetual beginner and I find it so much easier. All right, so we're going to work on, before we get into the code part, we're going to look at the static files. So static files are like images, the CSS, JavaScript, if you are used to that. So we need to tell, just like before, we need to give a place in Django to hold these files. Django doesn't give you a place to start out with. So we're going to go back into our app. So right now, my computer, I'm in the directory that has the settings.py and urls.py. So I'm going to back out of that area. And if you're not used to that, that's change directory ... and that means go up a directory. I'm going to do that twice. Wait, no, once. And now I'm in the folder that has manage.py. And then I'm going to change directory into collection. And the collection directory is the one that has views.py and models.py. And in here, I'm going to create the folder to hold our static files. And I'm going to cd into that folder. I'll make this a little bigger. And then I'm going to create a folder to hold a CSS. And I'm going to go into that folder. And then I'm going to create an empty file, which you're going to have to do in your editor. Again, if you don't have the ability to do touch, I'm going to call it style.css. So we're going to create these 2 directories underneath the collection. So go into collection, create a static directory, then create a CSS directory, and then we're going to put an empty file called style.css. Cool. Yes? Here, I'll make this a little easier since my projects area got a little wide. That doesn't work. That didn't work at all. Let's make it smaller. That's a little easier to read. There we go. So you're going to go into your collection. Whoops. That doesn't work. You're going to go into your collection directory in your command line. And then you're going to, where is it? So go into your collection directory. And then, where's my makedir? It disappeared. All right. Let me help you directly. My command line seems to have gotten a little weird. Yeah.
Once you create it, you are directly inside it.
Oh, I think in some. Mine doesn't. I think
it does. You create it and you're already in it.
Inside collection.
Yeah, no, I mean like not in that line of code, like somewhere previously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what? Didn't I just create it? Yeah, that's why I'm like really confused because I swear I was here and I swear I made it, but I think when I opened, like, when I expanded the thing. Oh. I mean, there it is. Make dir static. Make directory. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I'm really confused why that line did not show up here. So if you go, I don't know. Isn't that weird? Okay. So I'll just redo it. So I'm going to remove, don't do this. All right. So I'm like before. I'm in collection. I'm going to make static. And I go into static. And then I make CSS. I know, right? And I'm going to go, like a line of code disappeared from my terminal, like the history there. It just did not exist. Um, it's, it, and we think it disappeared when I resized it. Yeah. And then we CSS, and then I make. All right. Now it's there. Restarted. Very confused. All right, well, I'm going to go. We have that style, that's CSS, and that's underneath static, under CSS. And then the book itself tells you to make an images directory and a JavaScript directory. I'm just going to ignore that for the sake of time. So we created a folder to hold the CSS. And CSS, if you're not used to it, CSS is basically how you update the style of your website. You can do different background colors, you can do different fonts. So that's something you can look into later after Hello Web App. It's pretty easy to start picking up some basics, and I have some resources. So find me if you want to learn more about CSS. For now, you can just follow along. So the thing is that's confusing about Django is that I think Django is built for people building apps that don't have front ends. They don't have like a website front end. You don't get to see it in the browser. So this stuff isn't enabled by default and it drives me nuts. You have to tell Django, hey, it's totally cool to use these static files to use images and CSS as my website. So you have to tell it to load this in your HTML file. So if you go back over to index.html, and at the top of your file, you're going to say curly brace, %, and this is it's kind of, if you know HTML, it's kind of like this bracket thing, but it's just the Django notation, curly brace, %. And you're saying, hey, Django, load static files off of this page. And Django will let you add CSS and add HTML. And then we're going to link to that style sheet. And it has some funny notation. So in our head, HTML. So if you've used CSS before, this looks exactly how you would be linking to your CSS file, except for, again, that curly bracket, %, static CSS dot slash style.css. The reason why it's like that is because if you eventually, your web app won't live on your computer. You'll deploy it live on a server on the internet, and people can come to your web app and use it. When you do that, your static files might move. It depends on the server that you launch your website on. So Django uses this notation to keep track of basically where your static files are. So locally, it figures out the right path and inserts it in here for you. And then later on, when you deploy it, you can do a different path later on. That's why. It's just to help with deployment later on. That's why we have this weird notation. Yeah. Exactly. So like later on when you deploy, and it's actually the last chapter of the book, talks a little bit about this, because you're going to deploy on Heroku. You say like static URL is this. And then you can have a different file like settings.production or settings_production. And you'll say static URL is actually this. And then Django magically, you don't have to change your HTML files because Django, you use this notation here. You can keep this. You just have to point out in your settings file eventually, you just point it to a different area. So I put this in here, and I'm going to open up my CSS file. I'm going to use it my MacVim. So in your server, I'm using my own way of opening it up to open this file. So I just opened up the empty file using my my editor, and it's empty. And just to make sure this is working, I'm going to use CSS to color the background of the page blue. Actually, I'm going to do cornflower blue because it's a much nicer color than blue. What's up? I see a face. Okay. Well, let me make sure I didn't make a mistake on my end. There we go. So I'm going to open this up. Can I see your HTML file?
Yeah. I'll open it back up again. I haven't been doing it in VI, but so there's my style
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Right there. And then the index file, is that right?
Yeah. Static. And then that CSS file is in the correct directory, right?
As far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Let's go back over here. CSS. Is that in the same? The
Oh, it
right
needs to be
place?
under a static file, a static directory.
There we go.
Ta-da. Now try refresh. It's always the magical moment. Ta-da. Okay.
Okay, great.
So this is a little bit of Django's magic. One of the other Django tutorials, there's like a lot more complicated ways of adding your static files in. But if you have a static folder inside your app, Django will find that automatically and be like, allow those static files to be used by your computer, by your app. So that's why there's a static directory that's under collection, because Django's like, oh, okay, I'll just magically take that. You can put your static files in other places, but then you don't lose the magic and you have to do a lot more complicated stuff. All right. Does everyone else have blue? Is anyone else missing blue on their website? That's totally fine. Take your time.
I guess one
Yeah.
thing about Django is that, like, I think older style web things would force you to redeploy
Yeah.
onto your server before you can see it. Here, you just save it and refresh it.
Yeah. Sometimes, all right, sometimes when things don't work, you have to like restart the server just in case, and then it magically works. That's like step one in debugging, is to try restarting the server, because sometimes it doesn't work. 90% of the time, it just magically works. You just put the files in the right place, you link over to the files, and poof, it's there. But sometimes it's silly. Yeah. Yes. So let me go, I'll do a little sidebar. Well, I'll actually, you know what? It's coming up in a second. Brace percent is like it's like an action. It's like, hey, Django, do this for the template language. Yeah. There's also curly brace, which is like a variable. And we'll show how that works in a moment.
I work in like Java and JSP, and they use like less than percent, so you can throw it in Java.
Gosh, PHP. I'm learning that right now. Their template.
Different languages, I think, take HTML so you can insert whatever the web framework understands into that code.
All right. So nothing to type in for a second. I'm just going to go point over a point in the book. So this syntax, this curly brace percent sign static, and then file location, file name dot type. So if you're going to link to your JavaScript files, and it was underneath the directory of JS, you'd say js/script.js. If you're going to link over to an image, it'd be images/logo.jpg within the HTML tag, like that. So that's basically how you link over to their static files if it's in a directory, in your apps directory under a static. And Django will just fill it in for you. Cool. Any questions about static files? Yeah. 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 I think in the second chapter of the book, I have a couple HTML tutorials I link out to, and they'll totally explain like how to do like linking for images and HTML and just how to add more lines to your website. I think that'd be a really good resource because so how you do HTML? Yeah, that's this right here. So here we're linking to the CSS file. And if we go to the HTML, I'm just going to open up the source here. You can see that up here, that's not what our HTML file looks like. Django took our HTML file and stuck this piece in for us automatically. So let's do it back and forth. Yeah, we created that CSS file, and then we're linking over it. You can create like another CSS file, link to it. You can put some images into an image directory, point to that as well, using HTML, the HTML image tag. And you can see here, this is, like we told Django, hey, figure out where the static file lives, and then Django up here, figure out the right path to link correctly. It's part of what Django's doing behind the scenes to make the website run.
And if I would add something, I would just create a new line. Like then,
What would you be adding? Like another,
like for example, the example you just did, image logo, you would just create a new line under the one you just created.
yeah, so you could, so I'm gonna grab an, well, so I'm gonna grab an image on my computer. So 202.jpg. And I'm going to put it, feel free to just watch me do this. You don't have to follow along. So I'm going to go into tutorial. And I'm going to create a new directory here called images. And I'll paste this image in here. So to link to this image, I'm just going to grab the image source here. It's already in our images directory, and it was 202.jpg, I believe. And then I go back over here, and you can see the image popped in. So I'm using HTML to link to the image that's there, but I'm using Django to put in the correct path, and that's this part right here. Django builds the path for you. All right, so I'm going to move a little bit further into more fun things about the website, and this is template tags. So if you're building a website, say you have an index.html, an about.html, so an index file, an about file, a contact file, you could, this is like back in the 90s, you would copy paste this entire page, open up a new file, copy paste it in, just switch out about an index, and then you open a new file and paste it in. So you would have a lot of repeated code. Django, other languages, but including Django also, allows you to build a template file. You could say, instead of repeating code between all these files, so if you update something, you have to fix it on every single file, you can say, hey, create this one master file, and then I'm just going to, so this one master file has everything, like 99% of what I need, and then this file is just going to say, oh, and the headline will be this. And it'll be really easy to see what I mean by that once I put this in here. So we're going to create this master file, this master layout file for our website. So we're going to go into our templates folder that we created before, which is under collection, and we're going to create an empty file called base.html. All right, so now I'm in collection. See, change directory into templates. And this is the same place where index.html is. And I'm going to create an empty file called base.html. And then in my editor, I'm going to open it up. And it's completely blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy paste. Well, now I screwed pooch there. Where was I? Whoa, that's fun. I was using complaint plus sign. That's never happened to me before. Okay. There we go. Okay, back to here. All right. Base.html is empty. So I'm going to go back to index.html. I'm just going to copy paste everything over. So they're identical files, but I'm going to remove the information in base.html that we don't want repeated on every single file of our website. So I'm going to make this blank, and I'm just going to put this in here, override me. And then we're going to have an H1 here, and we're going to override that as well. Is that right? Yep. All right, so there's two sections here on this like template file that's going to be running every single one of our HTML files on our website. As you can see, it has all of the HTML bits at the top, where it's like doctape.html. It has load static files. It has these title tags. It has a link to our CSS. These are things we don't want to repeat in every single HTML file we create, as well as, say, the body. But we can't just put this here. Django doesn't know what that means. So I'm going to put in the actual code for overwriting. So the way that Django does this is you define blocks, and these are the places that we'll be overwriting this information. So we can say, hey, create this block of content, create this block of title, and then your master template will have all the information that's shared between everything, and you're going to have child templates that define what these blocks override. So instead of saying override me, we're going to say, hey, this block is called title. And we're going to add another block here called content. Cool. So this is the places where we say, hey, Django, and these child templates, other templates are going to be using this master template for places. These are the places we want to add in information from these child templates. This is where the child template could override the information. Now this one is not empty, because we can also define default content. So if a child template says, hey, use this template file, but doesn't define a title you use, it will by default put this information in. So I'm going to switch up my index file now to use this master template. So we're going to go to our index. I'm going to copy paste this in, but I'll leave it up for you. So instead of this, we're going to do this. So the first thing at the top, we say, wait 1 second. There we go. First thing at the top, we say, hey, this is now a child template because we're going to extend base.html. So this is how it's defined as a child template. You're saying, hey, there's a parent template, and it's called this. And then we say, hey, for the title, we're going to use homepage. And this fancy bit right here, block.super, if you defined default content, like we did over here, which is my Hello Web App project, if you define default content, you say, hey, use that default content here, block.super. And then for the content part, I said, hey, h1, hello world, paragraph, I'm a basic website. So you can kind of see how the child template uses these blocks that we defined in our base template to kind of puzzle piece your website together without having to repeat doctape.html, HTML head, and everything between all of our files. You only have to define what's different in this file. So if you go back over to our website, this just popped over because I took out that image. It works just like before, even though now we're using a template file, and we have that child template that's defining just the blocks we want to override. So if you go back over here, instead of saying hello world, you can say I am a child template. Save that. You can see that's indeed using the index.html file, and it's basically just like taking those two files and mushing them together. Any questions about child templates and base templates? Saves. To be honest, I forget a lot all the time, and I have to look it up a lot. I have a website where I just copy paste things over. I'm like, what was that called again? And I go into my website and like, oh yeah, block.super. I don't remember anything. I just Google for stuff all the time, like how to do regex. Like I look at my old examples. So I know that's not a great example. Like you have to remember, but that's totally me. Don't feel like you have to remember these things.
The other thing to keep in mind is as you're developing this and working this, you'll have that reference. So
Right.
a lot of time in my own stuff, I'll refer to my own stuff that I built a year ago that I don't remember at all how it works, but I can look it up.
Yeah, but you're like, oh yeah, wait, I used a child template, and this child template, you can look in your child template and say like, what was that block thing? And then you can find it. That said, the website, the Django website has really good documentation, so it's all in there as well. All right. So we have everything we had before, and now we'll see why we actually use this like master template. So we don't have to we can create other pages for our website a lot faster. I'm going to create an about page and a contact page, 2 more child template files that are using that master template we built. So I'm going to go back into the command line where we have our base.html and index.html, and I'm going to copy index into this new file. So that's CP, and then the file you want to copy, which is index.html, and then I'm going to call it about.html. So then you notice that now there's an about.html there, and I'm going to do that once more for contact. So now we have 3 identical files, index.html, about.html, and contact.html. And you can go into those files and update them to be not identical. So for example, so I'm going about, and I'm going to change the title. Instead of saying my homepage, I'm going to say about, and the headline about. And I'm going to open up contact and do the same thing. So I'll show you the commands in just a second. It totally, it is a little bit. It would be, if you knew that every HTML file you had is ones you want to use, you would kind of hope that Django would just magically pull that in. But Django, yeah, right. I think it's because Django was originally built as like more backend. Like the website stuff, this is all stuff that isn't built in by default. I like to teach website stuff first because you can see what's going on rather than say poking at the command line. But they had no reason to like always need a website portion. So there was no reason to have this URL stuff to define what the website stuff does. Like it could just be code in the back end and they have no URL stuff. So that's why it's there. It's for people who want the URLs, can define what they want, but people who don't need to do anything there and it doesn't do it automatically. All right, does everyone have the about page? Nope. Cool. Yeah, so you're in templates, right? So try doing, yeah, so you can just do CP.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, index
I
study.
just was trying to get to the right directory when you were talking, and I just couldn't keep up.
Sorry, it's hard to,
Hard to gauge where everybody is.
yeah,
And I just want to copy.
which is why we have, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you've successfully created a copy of that index file, you can open those index files up. Sorry, my thing's gotten really long. It's probably easier to look at this. Mm-hmm. Yes, all there. All the HTML files should be under /templates. So the index looks like this. So where it says, hey, I'm a child template, extends, And then we created a new block for title. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I think you're fine. I'll show you my command line. So I'm in templates now. If I do ls, you can see they're all in the same area. I see. Well, nothing should change because if you did it correctly, it looks exactly the same.
Oh, I thought though that we added.
We added new files, but we haven't linked to them yet.
Oh, we haven't linked them.
Yeah, we're waiting for people to catch up. Mm-hmm. No, sorry, we just created the new HTML files at this point, but we have not linked to them yet. So the website looks exactly the same. Show me your index.html. And then I would update that. Let's see. See, hello world. I would change your H1.
So what's with this block title thing? What does that mean?
So that's the places in your base file, you defined blocks in there. And that's the places overwriting. And your child templates are using the same syntax. So in your base template, you have block title. And you can name that whatever you want. In your child template, when you say block title, Django says, oh, here's that block, and it matches the block on the base template, so I'm going to mush them together.
Sure. So, block title, my hello web app.
Yeah.
So, where does homepage go?
That's this right here at the, where is, at the top page.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an HTML
That was
thing.
different.
Yeah. So if anyone's confused about HTML, the title tag doesn't show up in your website. It shows up at the top bar of your browser. So if you don't see that, that's totally fine.
Okay, then
We're good. Okay, I'm just going to move on. Okay. So we created those new files. And by the way, they're going to have a break in 7 minutes. Yeah, I saw. It's totally fine. I have an alarm. So, because we created those new files, but again, like I said, we have this like urls.py, which holds the list of every file that we're using. We haven't actually pointed to about.html or contact.html, and we're going to use a shortcut because we're going to not involve views.py here because we want to just avoid that step for this. And the way you can avoid views.py is you're going to call something called template view. This is a shortcut that's built by Django that says, hey, just display this template instead. Avoid the step of going to views.py. So I'm going to copy paste this in. So here's the urls.py from before. I'm going to import this shortcut that Django built for us. And then I'm going to copy paste this in. And remember, if you copy paste it in, to get the indentation correct. All right, so like before, like with index, we said, hey, for strings that are empty, go to views, find the index block, and then grab that code. Here, we say, hey, for things that have about, we're going to use template view here. And we're going to say, hey, just display this template about the HTML. And we're going to name it about. Same thing over here. So for anything that has /contact, just grab this template, contact.html, and name it contact. So we're going to avoid views.py. Yeah? So the view step is useful if you, say, have a website where you have to have some logic, when you know that someone grabs that website, you want to do some things behind the scene. So that's when you need to involve views, because that's where you write that logic. For pages like about, where you don't have to deal with logic, you can just skip that step. That's why we're doing the shortcut. Any questions about this step? Because now that we have that, Whoops.
the regex that allows it to be.
Yeah.
So
That's the reject right here I have highlighted.
yeah.
And the caret basically means like start of string. You probably already know this. Yeah.
Just the dollar sign include everything that's not
That's a great question.
about admin. And so do you need to have about right above that? Or how does it know that, if I said it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regex with just the dollar sign would match about. Because it's
Why does it have the slash here, or why does it have the dollar sign?
no. I'm curious as to because that top regex, the regex with just the dollar sign
Mm-hmm.
matches all of this, right? So
That's a great question for someone. I know that there's a good answer for that, and I can't remember what it is. Because it doesn't grab everything. It just grabs, I think that means end, doesn't it? Doesn't that mean end of expression? Yeah, so it doesn't grab everything. It just grabs things that have nothing. This one right here. Yeah. Whereas this one says about and then nothing else.
what about things that are named about? So like it sounds
Things
like
that,
what we're defining is about content and admin.
mm-hmm.
Use this special thing that we don't even know to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything else goes in views, right?
Yeah, we haven't built anything else yet, though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this case, does it take anything else that ends that does not end in about contact and admin?
Mm-mm. Like if you go over here and you say like that, it says page not found because we didn't define it.
But if I had something that was called paging or whatever it is in my views,
Yeah,
it would find it.
it would find it. Oh, sorry, if it's in your URLs. It's only if it's in your URLs.
There's probably a way to replace, make this show up as regex that says something nicer looking for your error page.
Uh,
Pattern to say, if it's garbage, then go to this.
yeah,
generic.
there is at the end of here, I tell you how to fix that. All you have to do is to add a 404.html template, and Django magically finds it and uses that instead. I just haven't got. Yeah, you just have to put it in your templates directory, and if it exists, Django will use that instead. There is a caveat. That's only if your thing is launched, because you know how this error page has a whole bunch of extra information here. This is turned off by default if you say launch your website live. You don't want random people seeing this page. So it'll use the HTML, the 404 template you define. This is here locally to help you debug because it gives you error. It's like it tells you page not found, 404. This is what we tried. You'll see this in other error messages. So that template will work if you tell it that it's not a live web page. You can say, hey, debug equals false. Like you're not debug mode anymore. I want to see my website the way it is, and then it'll use that template. But there's a whole chapter in the PDF that I sent you that goes into that with more detail. All right, we created these new, actually, let's do break time, because it's 3 o'clock and there's snacks. So you feel free to be here and we'll answer more questions and whatnot. Feel free to hit the restroom, hit some snacks. We'll come back here in, say, 15 minutes at 3:15.
And the snacks are supposed to be really nice, so you can go grab snacks.
They emphasized to me the snacks are very expensive, so people need to eat them.
So
Yeah.
let me see if I understand this. This says just my URL with nothing else after it, right? And goes to views index.
Is there any more questions about this section? Well, we're creating it in Python here. I mean, this is Python code right here. But we're using Django's templating system to push out, because exactly. Well, I don't know that to create a function in the file in the Py file?
So the way the Django templates work is you're not supposed to have a lot of logic in there. So basically, if you're doing like a database query, for example, you wouldn't do that but you would do it
In
here.
the template,
So
yeah.
imagine number equals 6. Instead of 6, you have some like, you grab the number of users that you have somewhere as an example. You would do that here, and then you would shove that number in through. So
Yeah.
you do your logic here, and then that way, when you're rendering it, you don't have to
Yeah,
do as much
any
logic.
kind of equations or anything like that. Yeah, thanks. So this is where, by the way, you can see the differences in Django's template syntax. Because now we have curly brace percent sign and then curly brace curly brace. Curly brace percent sign is essentially like an action. It's like doing something. So when it comes to block title, it's kind of like Django has to do something here. Django has to go find the block in our parent template and display that in. Curly brace is like just display this variable, display this thing that we're passing in. So it's just like, just display this word. And that's why they're different. One's an action, and then one's kind of like a thing. All right. Yeah. We're just kind of showing how we can pass in things from like where you write programming code. You can pass it into the website. Because we could like say display this, just write the word 6 on the website. But you'll see in a second that we can do things in the views file you can't do in just like straight HTML. So I'm going to add a little bit of template logic in here just to show you some things that Django's templates can do. So right now we're just displaying this number, but we can do things like if number. We can surround it and if. So this says, if number is being passed in, the template's saying like, hey, does this exist? And if it does exist, it does what's in the middle. So if number, then display that number. So I'm going to switch this out just to make it a little easier to see what we're doing. I'm going to say, hey, if number, I'm going to say number exists. So here, we go back over to our website and refresh. And you can see because we were already passing in that 6, we've changed it into just displaying the 6, but we changed it from that to saying like, hey, if that 6 exists, if that variable is being passed in, then display this sentence. And if you do any other kind of programming, you already know if loops or if statements and for loops and whatnot. And all those things actually, those simple things exist in the Django template language as well. And you can also update it into just being like, hey, does this exist? You can also say, hey, does this exist? And does it equal something? So we pass in the number of 6. I'm going to make this a little more fun. Say, hey, if number is equal to 6, then we say number is number. So because it is indeed 6, it displayed number is 6. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to switch it around to 8. So now that shouldn't work because we're saying, hey, is it 6? Then display this. Now it's 8. I refresh, and it disappears. We also have the ability to do else. So now I've updated this to say, hey, if the variable we're passing in called number is equal to 6, then say this. If it's something else, then say this. Like to say number is not 6. Because we're passing in 8, you can kind of see how this is logically going through the command we put in. Yes?
How close is the syntax that Django understands Python? Because it isn't exactly Python.
It isn't exactly Python.
Is there like a place that describes what it will accept? Like, is it
Yeah,
documentation?
there is. So I'll go, it's linked in the book. So there's a link right here, which is helloweb.com/13, which just goes over Python, since it's right there. Here, let me do this. Hi, web stuff. Okay, Django. Yeah, so if you Google for Django template tags, there's a whole page on Django called the built-in template tags and filters. And because my website, well, that sucks. How do I get that? Oh, there we go. You can see here it has, I have Reddit open. You can see how it says, like, here's the for loop, there's ifs. There's extensive documentation of everything that exists. So it's like,
It tries to be Python, but
yeah,
you need to end the statements.
yeah, exactly.
Because I don't understand anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious why there's what I would consider a dangling comma at the end of number, right? That's a,
Oh, right here.
yeah, that's a dict that doesn't have anything else with it. And usually that's a good thing.
So in Python, like trailing commas are a good thing because then it makes it easier. It's not required. Like if there's only one thing, you can help me explain that. He's like an expert Python person, so I go with him. If there's only one thing, you don't have to have the Python. I always add it though because if people add more things, you can miss adding in that comma when you add more things at the bottom. There are some languages which don't like trailing commas, which really frustrates me because I love trailing commas in Python and I try to add them everywhere. It's kind of like a best practice when it comes to Python.
Pretty much only JavaScript and Internet Explorer that doesn't like.
Internet Explorer, right.
Is that? And I guess R. But the nice thing is you can rearrange things really easily if you have all
Yeah.
the commas. So if you want to change the ordering, for example, and then you always include it, you never have to ask yourself, do I need it? Do I not need it? It just makes everything easier.
Yeah, because if you're gonna like pass in another number, I always just do that, and then you, like Andre said, you can just reorder them. You don't have to worry about forgetting that comma. Like missing commas are like the number one like debugging thing that I always run into. I'm like, why isn't it working? It's probably a tiny little comma that I forgot. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna cruise onto a little bit more because there's like other template tags things that Django has built in. So we just did this. Like we can see that in Django we can do if statements. We can say, hey, if number equals this, otherwise do this. You can see how Django updates the website depending on what you're passing in from your view. And then you can do some fun things. Lots of fun things. So if you go back, all right, our number. So if you imagine yourself, we're going to say, hey, there is a dog park and we have 8 dogs. And then we go back to our index. So we're going to say number dogs. So it's just like we had before. We'll go back. Oh, keep opening the wrong one. If we go back over to Firefox, we can see, hey, we have 8 dogs. Now, say in our code, there was actually, so many dogs. Say in our code, for some reason, there was only 1 dog at this dog park. So now I've changed the number that we're passing into the template to 1. And we go back over to our website. We have 1 dogs, which doesn't make grammatical sense. There's a lot of like little fun things that Django built in to make your templates look better depending on what you're passing in. There's a thing called pluralize. So say number dog, and you can say number pipe, pluralize. So this is just like a little thing that Django has built in, and that there's a whole website and documentation that goes over some of these fun things that are there for you to use in your websites. So this says, hey, the pluralize filter says, look at number. If number is above 1, make an S. And if it's not 1, don't do an S. Number we're passing in is 1. So it's like, hey, this does not have to be plural. So you notice, now it just says 1 dog is at this dog park. You can do ES. Yeah, well, yes, I'll show you. So just to finish this, we'll change this to 8, just to show. Now we have 8 dogs. and it's correctly pluralized, bleh. And it doesn't have to be just S. We can define what the plural form should be. So I'll get to that in a second, because we can do is, oh wait, no. Okay, I think they have it on the website. You're right, goose and geese. Yeah, you're right. That's a great question. I didn't think about that, because I was thinking, oh, I can just do, all right. All right, we're at the pluralize. Next one. Second, I gotta make this right size. Okay. Let's look at documentation. Pluralize. Okay. All right, so you can say, hey, ES. Okay, there. This is how you would do it. You can say just ES if it's walruses, so then it would just use ES as the plural version. But if there is something you need to replace like entirely, like the singular use Y and the plural use IES. So in goose and geese, you probably just have a G, and then you'd have oos or ees as back and forth. Or have the whole entire thing. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Django does have that. I figured. That's why I had to look in the documentation. Yay, Django. Did not let me down. All right. So I'm going to whip through. I'm just going to show you in the book all the rest of the other ones it has, just so we can go fast. There is an additional project you can install called Humanize. And just like when you said load static files, you had to tell Django, hey, use this, because this is not built in by default. But it's called AP number. So if you're used to the AP style guide, where AP style guide says, hey, if you have the number 1, you want to spell out O-N-E. But if you have numbers that were, I think, 10 and above, you're going to use the numerals instead. It's like a style guide thing. Someone in Django created this extra project that you can use that you just say, hey, humanize this, and it'll use the correct version of the number. So it's just built in there if you're building your website. It makes it a little nicer way, like a way to make your website nicer and adhere to AP guidelines. And then if you went to your views and you passed in a string, a sentence. Notice before, because we passed in a number, because it's Python, we didn't add quotes around it, because quotes make it into a string. This is actually a string that has quotes around it. That's the sentence. So just like before, in your views, you can say, hey, make this variable called thing. We're going to assign it to thing name, and we're going to pass that into the template, just like we did with that number. And then in the template, just like before, we could say, here's my name. Let's put that up. And that's just like before with a number, you can access that variable we passed in using those 2 curly braces. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Whoops. Okay. All right. So we're passing in a string instead of a number. Go away. And now you can see thing name is correctly showing up onto the templates. And there's a whole bunch of template filters you can add here as well to alter the data, to alter what you're passing in. Notice that thing has a capitalization on thing, but not on name. You can say lowercase, or just lower. So you do pipe lower. You can say, hey, Django, do something with this and make this all lowercase. Refresh, everything is lowercase. You can do pipe title. Refresh, everything is title case. There's other things that are included, like truncate words. And I just know this because I love playing with this all the time. Truncate words equals 1. I think that's going to work. I say, hey, if there's more than 1 word in here, and I define how many words, it'll just do a ... So if you're passing in like a huge paragraph, but you want to end it at after 10 words and just have it nicely go ... you can do that with Django's template tags, template filters and tags. So there's a whole slew of this that's 1.5 billion. Oh, you can see how long this page is. There is one page that lists out everything that's involved in Django. The book goes through a lot of my other filters I really love. But the reason why I like this so much is that it gives you more power than just typical like HTML websites. It allows you to, you can see that you can update the information you're passing in using Django's template language. All right, so many examples. All right, last big thing. We're ending at 4:40, correct? So we have a little bit less than 1 hour. And this is going to be the fun part. We're actually going to start dealing with databases and what databases, like how it all works. And this is where the true power of a web app is. So web apps with login forms and registration forms and whatnot, when you have your collection of things, a database is where you're storing that information. So for my original website that I launched, that directory Wedding Invitation Designers, the database is holding the names and descriptions of every person that signed up to work with me. So say if you're building your own profile website, your database is going to be holding that information that people are going to be entering for you. And Django makes the database stuff work a lot more, like it kind of smooths over this whole process of taking information from your website and inserting it into this database, and then smooths over the process of taking the information out and displaying it again. So the first thing we're going to do to make it so we can play with database stuff, we're going to use this command called create superuser. So if we head back over to our command line, in your command line, you need to be in the same level of your project that has manage.py. So I'll let you all get to there. So it's the top level folder of your project. All right, anyone not there yet? Not there yet, okay. I'm gonna type in the command, but I won't go run it. So once you're in this folder, you're gonna run this. It's basically like what you were doing with run server before, or your when you installed, you create your collection, your app. You're going to be using this command that's from manage.py, or say, hey, go to the manage.py file and run this command. And it's going to make you the super user for the project for this database that it builds for you. So that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Okay. And if you're like me, I fell out of my, there we go. If you run into that, I tried to run this command, and it said, hey, that didn't work. There's no module named Django.core.management. It's because when I closed my computer, I fell out of my virtual environment. That bubble, that virtual environment we set up earlier, wasn't up here. So I don't have access to the Django commands unless I restart my virtual environment, which is why I did that source activate script. And that's the stuff. If you're on Macs, that's the stuff that's in the setup pages. And if you're on Windows, that's the ones we did earlier. Wow. So when you run create superuser, it's going to ask you for your information. Your password does not have to be like your totally amazingly secure password, because we're just working locally. This is not stuff you're going to be launching live to people real life. So feel free to use a normal password. Yeah, add your email address, add your password, and that's going to create you an account on this database that Django creates for you. Is it? How? What is it saying? What? I've never had that problem. I guess my password is 8 characters. I've never run into that before. Okay, well, it is a little picky about passwords. Sorry. In the, yeah. But this is the same process if you were using a different kind of database. This is the same process. Yeah. I'll show you how you use it in a second. You can. I'm using the default, which is SQLite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for my real live web app that I launched, I'm using Postgres. But Postgres requires a lot more things to be installed. And it's like, I'm not going to do that here. No more install things. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else having problems with super user? Okay. Sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah?
But I don't have the email.
Oh, I type that in myself.
Oh, oops.
You can use whatever you want. That's my own password.
Okay.
So you can just keep your username. That's the same. You can press enter if you're fine with Masako. And then you can type your email address.
Got it.
Yeah. No worries. I wasn't very clear on that. All right, so to show you why we created this super user is because Django gives you an admin panel. Because normally when you, say, built a web app and you have a database, you'd have to use a lot of command line stuff, which honestly I don't use very much myself, to like inspect your database and like insert things and remove things. But Django has this like admin that's very, like, I'll show you. It's visual, so you can do things all through the admin. You don't have to worry about using the command line to interact with your database. So if you're localhost colon 8000 do /admin, this is where that username and password that you just created, that's where it's going to go. And then Django makes a nice view over the stuff it's already built for you in the database stuff. If you click on users, you can see you. You're a user of your own database. Yeah. SQLite. Yeah. You can use other databases. They just take more setup times, and yeah, this is like easy enough for like users first projects, especially when you're not like deploying it. So yeah, you can go into the admin, put in your username and password. You can kind of poke around. You can indeed delete yourself as a super user, but you don't want to do that. But you can click on it. You can see that Django already, it doesn't just display your password. It has security things built in for exactly what it's called, hashing the password. But that's all built in for you, and you don't have to build it yourself. So when users use your web app and they put their password in, you can't see it, and that's really good for security, and that's all built in on Django. But you can change your password. It won't tell. Oh yeah, hey, those are all the things that it told you about. You can change your password from this view. You can change the email address you have on file. You can change permissions. And so when users join your web app, you can see all the information from this admin panel. You can update it as needed. Yeah. Is there the default? I believe if there's ways you can say, hey, email the admins. It'll find admin people and email that stuff out. But it's also there for like users who sign up. That's where their email address goes in. It just requires it by default for all users. All right. All right, so that's the admin, but you notice that we're building this collection of things, but there's nothing in here about our collection or what we're actually building, what we wanted to build ourselves. I'm going to check up over here, just a moment. Just Windows things.
She's using Git Bash, but it doesn't advertise itself as an interactive terminal, so it won't do interactive stuff.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought it did. That's
Maybe
weird.
You have to run with a weird flag that we don't know.
Oh. Crud. All right. So now we have, we can see the admin, and now we're going to add our own little section to the admin, our own database, that collection that we're building of things. So that's where we, this is where the file models.py comes in. You can consider models.py as kind of like the plan for what you want to enter into your database. And when you think about databases, it helps me to think about it like a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet has columns defined for like name. Like for every object in my database, I want to have a name, a description, and a slug. And then the rows of the database are those individual objects with those fields filled in for us. And then the models is where we define where those what those columns are in that, that spreadsheet idea. So I'm going to copy paste this. We're going to open up a new file. So models.py is in the same folder as your views.py. It's in the collection directory. And when you open up models.py, this is what it looks like. I'm going to close some tabs so you actually can see at the top. There we go. Models.py is in the same folder. Who asked that? Is in the same folder as views.py, which is also in the collection folder. So it says create your models here. And this is what we're basically creating the plan for our database. So this is the plan. We're telling Django that our database are going to hold things, which is that class thing up there. And each of these things are going to have a name, a description, and a slug. And if you don't, and a slug is what's going to go in your URL. If you're going to have mysite.com/, the slug is what's after that. So it's like thing-name. Because even if you poke around the internet and you look at the URLs, you can't have spaces. They have to be dashes in between the spaces. And so we define that in the database to make it really easy to access the pages that these objects are going to live on. You can't just have name and description, but we're gonna just build that all in. Basically, like the page on the website where they're going to live, it's the name of path of that website. I have mush brain, sorry. It's a separate column in that database. So the thing is the database. It's basically a database for thing, and then column, column, column.
So every class is its own database.
Pretty sure. Table. There we go. Table in the database. Yep. So slug, better way of describing it. Great question. Andrew, do you know that? Can you link tables? That's the stuff where it's like foreign key. That's foreign key, yeah. Yep, you can. So that's my second book, goes into that in detail. Actually, the first book has that too. We're not going to have time to get to that point, but we already have a table for our users, and we want to, in our thing table, we want to assign it a user eventually. You're going to say, hey, everything has a user attached to it. So you point it over to the other table so you can tie them together. Okay. So does everyone have this all typed in into their models.py? So we can't just like refresh the admin and have it magically work. We have a thing we have to deal with called migrations. So if you think of your database as a spreadsheet with different data, and we are starting out with just 3 columns of data, our name, our description, and our slug. And later on down the line, we're like, hey, we want to add another row in here, and we'll call it maybe cost, like cost for our thing. If we just added that row and there's existing data, like we already have like 10 users all filled in, and we said we want to add more information, the database is going to be like, oh my gosh, how do I fill this in? How do I like add this extra column to this data without messing up the previous all the rest of the data in there? We could fill in those columns by hand, but by creating a migration file, it's basically a plan for going from like point A to point B. Like our database right now has these 3 columns, and then it'll have 4 columns. So this is how to go between this plan to this plan. But it also means like in the future, if you need to roll back, if you make a mistake, it's basically making these plan files. And Django won't let you update your models.py without saying, hey, make this plan file, and then applying it to your database. So it's kind of complicated, but you'll see what it's doing by creating the plan file. It's the same manage.py. Whoops. Same folder, again, like where you had create super user, same place. We're going to say, hey, manage.py, make migrations, all one word. So if you run that, it'll say, hey, I created this migration file, I created this plan file. And in this file, all we're doing is creating this model of thing. So we actually haven't applied it to our database. We just, again, created this plan file, and then we need to apply it to the database by running migrate. So migrate grabs this file that we just created here, 001 initial.py, and puts it onto the database and makes sure that all the data is peachy. And if there's an error, it won't touch the database. Basically, we don't want to it's like safeguards for customer information, so we don't accidentally like erase stuff or add things or have the database come corrected. This is like a 2-step process to make sure that data that's in our database stays happy and our databases don't break. All right, so I applied this migration, and if we went back to our admin, nothing changes, because frustratingly, even though we have this whole database table thing made, it doesn't show up here until we tell Django that it exists. And that is in this separate file called admin.py. It's in the same folder as your models.py. It's in your collection directory, and it says you have to register your models. So every model you put into models.py, you go into admin, you say, hey, indeed, put this into my admin so I can poke at it in this visual way. So I'm just going to okay. That's already there. So to register in the admin, to tell Django, like, hey, I want to take this table and put it into the admin, you have to import it. So you say, hey, from my collection, my app, from models, import this thing, this model that we just built, and then we're going to register it in the admin. At that point, I'll come back to this in a second, but every time, wrong one. Come back over here, ta-da, whole new area. You can see now you have the collection app, which has things, and you can say select thing to change, but there's nothing there because it's a new, it's completely new. We don't have any data in it yet. All right, does everyone have this typed in? Anyone not have this typed in yet? Andre got you. So you can come in here, and now you can just add things to your database using the admin panel. So I can say thing, and I'm going to add a little trick here just to show you something cool you can do with the admin. Because you can say, you can define the slug you want for this object you're adding. You can say, oh, I'm going to call it blah, 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 and save. And then you have this object here. Let's make this the right size. I won't. Okay. But we can add something special to the admin to pre-populate those slugs for us. So I'm going to copy paste this in and explain it. So I added this extra paragraph here, and it's going to allow us to update the data that we see in our admin. Because before we just had it by default, that was the simplest, but this is the way we can kind of customize what we see. So we say, hey, the admin for thing, so we're pointing it to that model that we just created, in the display of the admin, where it showed us all the objects, we say, hey, we want to see both the name and the description. So in the list, in the display, show those two fields that we put in our model. And we want to pre-populate a field, which is a special thing that Django has built in. We want to build the field slug from the name. So if you have this all typed in, you can go in back into your admin, add another object. I'll do it really quickly, and I'll come back here to the code. I'm going to add a new thing. And if you look at the slug field at the bottom, whoops, that didn't work. Oh, what? Fail. Oh, wait. There's one more line I forgot. My fault. You have to register the admin. Oh, not what I want. There we go. Nope. There we go. We had created this admin up here. We have to tie it over to this object, which is weird. These are things I don't remember by hand. It's just I have to, I copy paste it in, again, between all the projects. Or my book, for that matter. All right, so now I've registered that admin. I'm going to go back over here to the website, reload this. And now I type in the name. There we go. You can see it automatically filling in. So this is where the slug stuff comes from. So I typed in this space thing, and Django just it throws away, I guess we would say useless words like this, the, a, and it makes the slug more noun based. It's the actual, it's good for SEO if you already know how those things work. It takes away all those crufty words that we don't need. So this object has a name. You can see here, it took out this and a, so then the slug automatically adds in the dashes here, and it's just object has name. So it pulls out useless words, turns the spaces into dashes, it takes away the capitals, and it creates a nice URL for your object automatically. Yeah, the pre-populated field goes into the slug column on the database. Mm-hmm. So that's another magical thing, just FYI, that we can go over. Every object also has an ID by default. So you don't have it listed in the model. There's no ID equals because Django just has that. So you can, when you set up your website, which the book goes into a little bit later, and like how to like create individual pages for each of your object in your website. You can put in there, you can say like /ID, and then it'll pull the information in, depending on your views. So the ID stuff is already in there. In terms of pre-populating that field, you could pre-populate with other words. I've never done it for anything other than the slug, because to have it like automatically build the slug just saves you some time rather than having to write that function. All right. All right, so I'm going to add a few more objects. I have 2 objects with like blah, blah, blah descriptions. I'm going to add 3. So now in the admin, I have 3 objects in my admin. This is where that name and description stuff comes in. Wow. Where's admin.py? So you notice that we said list display, name, and description. And that's why this here has name and description here. That's we're defining what we want to display on this page. So we can update that to say name, description, and slug. Save it, refresh this page, and now slug is displaying as well. So you can kind of see how you can update the way the admin displays the data from your database. It is a link because then you can see the information. So you can update the objects in your database through this admin. Yeah, it does do that by default, comes first. You can add another line into that where you're defining here. Yeah, you can add another, I forget what it's called, but I think it's like link, and you can define which one you want linked. All right, we already added objects. Okay, so we built a website. We have a database. We have objects in our database, but right now they're completely separate from each other. So that's the next part. I want to make sure everyone is up to date. So I'm going to take a small break right now and just come over here, see how things are going. You can grab her. Yeah, can I answer any, help out? I mean, yeah, just want to make sure. How did you figure out the whole virtual environment? Did you make it bigger eventually?
Yeah, you have to allocate more display memory and reopen it and change it.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you figured that out. Yeah. Okay.
Just go to your other tab.
So when we go to the admin panel and refresh, it's not here, right?
Go to admin.py.
Yeah, so admin.py looks like this.
Interesting. Try restarting the server. Because it would show an error if it wasn't working, I would think.
That looks like it's fine, right? Actually, let me double check that it's, sorry. Should be under here, right? Oh, this is in the wrong place. Oh, this is in home collections, not under projects, my collections. This is under projects, my Hello Web app, and this is under home collections. So it's in the wrong place.
Oh, here, you can see the
Yeah, see?
the folder.
So you need to resave this to the right place. So rather than here,
All right. Cool. All right. So I'm going to move on to getting our database information displayed on our home page. So I'm back into views.pyworld, where we're playing with those template, playing with passing variables in from the templates, passing variables in from the views into the templates. And now we're going to grab data from our database and pass that into the templates instead. So these two, this is what we had before, where we had number and thing. I'm going to take those away. I'm going to take that away from passing it in. And now we're going to have this piece of code here. Oh, and at the top, sorry, one more thing. Well, you can keep it, but just because we're doing something different now. Clean? Yeah, so I don't have to get complex and or confused with other code. So the first thing we need to tell Django to do when we're in our views that, hey, we're grabbing information from this model, from this database that we just created. So that's why I say from Django that's wrong. From collection.models. From collection.models, that models file that we had, import thing, which is thing right here. And then we're going to use Django's syntax to grab all the objects off of that table. So I say, hey, grab thing, and then grab all objects. And we're assigning it to the variable of things. And then like before, we're going to pass all of these things over. Whoops. So make sure that all these match. It's things that are passing things into the template. Then we're going back to our index. Got this typed in. Need more time? Anyone? Okay. Or I'll just add some space in between things. I wish I could bold the new lines I added here in my, that would make things super easier. Can we? Could I like double click it and have it like bold? That's true. I'll come back in a second. I just want to grab this soon. Okay, need more time? Anyone? Okay. All right, so we're saying, in our views, we're grabbing all the objects in our database, we're assigning it to things, and then we're passing it into our template. So go back to our template where we had the whole number and thing, confusing. I'm removing all of that. I'm going to add this for loop. So we're telling Django in the template, say, hey, there's that things we're passing in, that collection, all those objects in our database. For every object that we're passing in, display the name and display the description. Name and description are those fields on the database that we set up, those columns essentially on the database, because we set up name, description, and slug. And that's how you can grab those individual fields for this object, is by doing dot. I'm going to try to do this. Close my admin. Bring that over here. So I refreshed the template, and you can see it is displaying all three things that were in my database here. These ones are larger because in HTML, I made them H2s, which is like a headline. That's why they're different sizes than the other ones. They're paragraph size. That's pretty much how you grab that information from the database. You can grab all objects. hurting my ear. Cool. Anyone have any errors? Yeah? Ah, yes. Yeah, so it's kind of nice if you go back over here, just FYI. Tells you in views.py, line 7. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. There you go, think.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
So at this point, if you went to the admin and you added another object and then refreshed your website, would magically pop in because you're just telling it to grab all objects. All right. I opened it for you. What's that?
Google Drive is stuck after page 40.
What?
Yeah, because I think it's
What? Yeah. That's frustrating. I didn't know it would just like download half.
I think it was bad internet downloaded.
That was a really smart call.
Yeah, I should have just told people to grab it. I get kind of worried because I don't want to be like, it can be like if someone has a virus, it could be like herpes and pass it around. That's why I try to be like, download it from the internet so no one's computers are touching each other. But worst case scenario.
So, I mean, like, what, a lot of what Django does
You can try another one.
seems to be about pulling that, eventually getting that dynamic data
Yep.
displayed onto the front end. But the front end still looks kind of,
Yeah, that's where you can play with CSS and make it
Okay.
look nicer. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm wondering, do people then combine stuff with other things to make the front end look a little,
Yeah.
what else?
Yeah. So we have, let's see, I just want to make sure. All right. So we have 13 minutes left. And we got to a point where we're displaying information on our website. And apparently Google Drive is being annoying and not displaying pages beyond, 40? So if you want if you're missing some of the book, feel free to come grab me and I'll give you the rest of the book. Because you want to make sure you get that to continue on for later, because you get a free book for being in my session. Anyways, the chapter goes on. I'm just going to gloss over this. The chapter goes on to talk about more ways of grabbing data from your database, because you don't have to just grab all objects. You can grab just some objects by updating what your query is. So instead of just .all, you can say just get the things that have the name of hello. You can do things like grab every object that has the name of a hello and then order that information alphabetically when it comes back. So when it's displayed on your website, it's in alphabetical order. You can say grab everything where the name is partially hello. This one says name is equal to hello. So only objects that have the name of hello will come back. But this one, we have __ contains. It'll grab objects with just have that word in there. You can also say like, hey, order the results in a random order. So if you have like a website of like search results and you don't want to like always have the same one at the top, you say come back in random order, and every time someone refreshes it, pulls that information in, it'll update the ordering. So there's a lot. So there's a link here, which is my reader is being weird. Let's open it up. Actually, no. Come back here. So you can grab all objects, you can grab some objects, you can grab objects with certain names. that's, ooh, I have to change that. That's fun. That's all in Django. They have a huge page of documentation that goes over how to do that kind of filtering. And that's linked to in the book. So at this point, with 10 minutes left, I want to just go over to my real project, my actual website that I run on Django, just so you can see what data can look like when you have a full web app. Because one thing that threw me off when I was learning how to code is like I was worrying that the things I was coding were going too long, or like how real people's, like how their projects actually look, projects that actually run, that are live and have customers. So this is the project. That is my live website. Is this gonna work? If the website, oh, there we go. Come back. There we go. So this is Wedding Lovely. This is what I taught myself how to code. And this is what it looks like. And if you go into the admin for my live website, you can see all the different fields I have in my admin. I have multiple apps. So this is my directory app. And in this directory app, I work with wedding vendors. And you can see that my wedding vendors, I've updated this admin area to show me like their name, what kind of vendor they are, whether they're a paying person, if they're on like a paid account, whether on a community account, is an account that hasn't been cleaned by someone yet. I can have links to their actual page on my website. That didn't work. That's fun. I blame the web. Oh, it's because that person's not approved yet. It links out to the pages on the website. Has a Twitter URL and Instagram. So you can kind of see how much information you can store and how powerful the admin is, and how easy it is to kind of like have people join, and you can kind of update and help them out and like display the fields you need to display. Like there's images attached to these people who join Wedding Lovely send an image that shows up on their profile. So that's just one of the directories. Sorry, one of the apps I have, because I have multiple apps. I have another app that runs the wedding planning part of my website, so someone can join the website and walk through wedding planning, and there's all the fields, all the different tables on that as well. So there's quite a few bit of information on here. And one thing I want to emphasize when it comes to coding, and I'm just going to go ahead and open up some of my code. So if this is intimidating, this is 6 years of work on this website. And this website is, I went through 500 startups with this website. It's making money. So it's like, this is not something that happens overnight, but this is what it's turned into over years upon years. So you can see how these bits of code that run pages of my website that kind of work. And when you look at this, you can kind of see what is going on here. That's a bad example. So this is complicated. So this one, you kind of read it from top down. This is my favorite way of coding, because some people, like I mentioned before, some people like to have a piece of code that runs many different pages on the website. I like one piece of code that just runs one page of my website. So on this page of this website, I grab the person who is loading this page, is the user. And then I grab their profile from that, and that's where you tie those tables in. So I grab the user, I can grab their profile, I grab the directory that person, whose profile, the directory that they're under, because people can be a venue or a photographer. And I can start setting some variables here, which is kind of cool within Python. So I was like, hey, if it's venue, make sure that this this variable size is set to their size of their profile. And I can say, hey, if it's pro profile, set this form. And then, hey, if they release this form, I can start setting information in my database. Is this complicated? A lot of people come to me and they say, my code looks bad. My code is really long. It doesn't look very efficient. A lot of programmers obsess about efficient code. My code is not efficient. And my website, I've gone through startups, or it is a startup. I've had co-founders and employees working on this. This is not the best code in the world. I can read it because I've written it. And I want to emphasize that you don't have to obsess about making sure your code is perfect. Make sure your code is working. Like if it's running your website, even if it's not totally efficient, as long as there's no security issues, that is totally fine. I emphasize you don't have to worry about being a perfect programmer when you're starting out. Just try to start building a web app. Just start writing the logic that you need to write. And as long as it pops up on the website, you can totally launch that and start working with customers. Most of what I've learned about learning how to program was just by running this website and working with real customers. Rather than, say, working behind the scenes and working on something theoretical, it was a lot, even though I had the worst code in the world, and I look back at this code and I'm like, oh my God, I can totally update this now with what I've learned this 1 year. It worked, and I got customers, and I just think it's really easy to learn. It's not easy to learn, excuse me. It's faster to learn when you're working with real people. It makes a lot more sense when you're not working off theory. Even if it's just like creating like a website that's just displaying skateboards or surfboards or types of surfboards, and you happen to launch that, which the book goes into like how to launch on Heroku. Just by having real people coming to that website, and someone's gonna be like, hey, I think this feature should exist, and then you can be like, oh, maybe I'll learn how to write that feature, and then you can learn from there. That's all I did. I just learned as I went. You were gonna say something? Mm-hmm.
Something that is common to all the users. Or, for example, you want to select a certain type of user.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it? As all the information is under each user, is it possible then to create a
Yeah, the best, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what we started going into in this query set stuff. So another thing I wanted to mention is that if you're trying to learn how to do something, that's why I like having the website up. I'm like, okay, I want this website to display all the people with this common name. And oftentimes I go into the code and I say, okay, using a query set, grab everyone with common name. I go back to my website and there's an error. And then I have to be like, huh. And I have to go figure out, okay, maybe I did this wrong. Or I Google, and I fix the error, and then the error changes. And I'm like, huh. And it's like error-based, like I learn by going through my errors until it magically works, and then I release the feature. Like errors are totally a part of the process, and that's how I figure out how to do what I need to do. Even if there's not an error, if I want to grab everything that has a certain name, and I type in the code and I open the website locally and it's not doing what I need to do, then I'm like, oh, now I need to update that and I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. It doesn't, like nothing ever works from scratch. That's what I want to say. So when you're starting out something new and you see an error message, that's why Stack Overflow exists. That's how you'll learn. That's how I just like go error by error by error until a feature is launched. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to do something.
So do you have like a development copy that you hold somewhere?
So what we've been building so far is like our local version of the website. So you can just futz with that until that you get that working the way you want it to work. And then you can decide to move that onto like Heroku and release that to the world, which is the last chapter of the book. Mm-hmm. So it's just like break everything you want locally. Your database will be separate than your live database, so you can break things on there if you really want to as well. And you can just use that local version to play around.
Do you maybe snapshot a copy of what your current, so your database that's
You can.
will have all of that information, but locally you might not, or?
Yeah, you can do that. You can grab the data from the live website. Sometimes I do that if I'm doing some really big feature, I need to have all that data locally to do something new. 99.9% of the time, though, my local data, I just have test objects in there, and it's pretty easy to figure out how things are going to work based on test objects. Is there any more? Yeah. Okay. You.
How do you plan like navigation? Maybe you say, okay, I want my users to enter in some relatively complicated piece of information. Should I just put them on one big page and fill out many steps, or should I just go through a wizard and it goes through?
That's like personal preference. That's like UX design, and UX designers will all argue about that for ages, about the right way, like which way to go with it. So it's going to depend on your personal preference of what you think will work. I also like to see. Sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do it this way, and then I'll run it by someone. Someone's like, I hate that, and I'm like, okay, learning experience. Maybe someone else is different, and I'll change it. But you can always change it if it doesn't work out.
And there's another talk you're doing later this week.
Right. Oh, I should mention that. So I'm talking at PyCon. I'm giving a talk on Monday. It's called Design for Non-Designers. It's going to be the third book. So I have two. These books are basically teaching development to non-developers. I'm going to write a book that's designed for non-designers. It doesn't go over UX per se in terms of like flows for websites, but it goes over how to create like better visuals for a website, like how to make it look more professional and cleaner, and also a little bit in terms of UX, in terms of like knowing what you're designing for, like what's the most important thing on that page. Like, do you want people to click a button, or do you want them to fill out a form? That kind of stuff. So yeah, that'll be on Monday, I think. You can come to my session. Yeah. Thanks, Andre. I should prove myself. Okay, questions about development, Hello Web App. If you didn't get, one question I just remembered. If you got, everyone should have the ebook files. I give that to you all. You hopefully will continue working. Email me, use the discussion forum, ask me questions. This tutorial is not in just today. I'm totally here to help you out as you continue to build stuff. If you did not get the PDF, or if you want the Kindle version of the book or the EPUB of the book, and you get them, you can either grab them from the USB keys here or email me later, and I'll email them to you. Just say you're at my tutorial.
Also, for the discussion board, I highly encourage you all to help each other, because one of the best ways to learn is by helping somebody else. Like, that's how I did a lot of my learning. Is like, I'll run into a problem I've never seen before because somebody else has it, and I'll try to help it out, figure it out with them. Then I learn something I wouldn't have otherwise learned.
And
So go on there and like ask questions, but also help other people if you know the answer. It's going to help you a lot as well.
you can see all the little pictures of me everywhere on here. And you can also go on here and help each other out, but you also see like all the questions that people have. And I personally find it reassuring that when I'm learning something new, that I'm not the only one who's having issues or having questions. And I will pop in here at the very least within like 2 days, hopefully earlier, to answer questions. So I'll always see what's on this forum if you need help. But there are other people who've been on here and helping others out, which is totally awesome. Yeah.
I wonder, as you have a website you created from scratch, from a creative background, and you like to have like a visual from each user,
Mm-hmm.
what is the benefits? What is actually the benefits for you if you would have done it in a perfect code? Like, as having done it already, you will not going to change all your code. It's done, it's done.
No, you
Would
go
you
back. Yeah, there's a whole concept called refactoring code. So you just like later on go back to your code and make it better. Some people call it yak shaving too. If they want to like distract themselves from other stuff, they'll just go fix their old code and make it look nicer. It's a good way of learning. And I look at my old code and I fix that all the time. I'm like, what was I thinking then? I have to rewrite it to make it better. Yes, code does not stay the same. Ideally, like you can always update it and make it better. All right, well, I think that's the end. Thank you, everybody. I hope you continue on building web apps, and I hope to be in touch. 2 at 5. I was very much focusing on just today. I'm like, I'll deal with that later.